This is a story of a life well lived, but too short. My mother's second diagnosis of breast cancer, which she had beaten in 1980, had resurfaced 18 years later in her lungs, found during a routine chest X-ray. Having defeated the disease once before, we were all optimistic that my mother would be victorious over the disease yet again, and initially, she responded well to treatment. For a long stretch of time, there was no evidence of the disease at all. But then, the insidious disease within began robbing my mother of her vitality, her stamina, her independence, though never ever her dignity. Valentine's Day 2002, my mother checked into the hospital. In the early evening after my father had wearily gone home, I took a long-stemmed red rose and a cheery helium balloon, along with the chocolate milkshake my mother had requested, and sat by her bedside for hours. In those precious moments, my mother and I spoke candidly about life, death, and most importantly, living. And even though the thoughts were serious, we still laughed and joked, managing to keep it generic and light. Each of us unwilling yet to openly acknowledge that her journey was surely coming to an end. Although she had been admitted ostensibly for a 24-hour visit, some new health crisis kept her bound to her 5th-floor hospital room. Day after day, as she lay patiently and smiling in her bed, the helium balloon stayed aloft, and the crimson petals of the rose I had given her, amazingly, stayed in beautiful, full bloom. After 12 days, I awoke from a fitful sleep in the chair next to my mother's bed, and the first thing I noticed was that the helium balloon hung lower on the bed rail, and several rose petals now rested on the table by her side. Her breathing was labored, and her spirit was noticeably quieter than it had been the days before. Throughout that day, my father, sister, and I took turns wiping her brow, touching her cheek, adjusting her pillows to make her as comfortable as we could. We each spoke softly to her, final private moments and warm memories of how much we loved her. We told her that we knew she was so tired of fighting, and that it was okay to finally let go, to know peace. My sister and I both reassured my mom we would watch out for our father on earth, knowing she would watch him from heaven, to help our dad through the unbearable loss of his best friend and sweetheart of 48 joyful, loving years. On Tuesday morning, February 26th, at 6:20 a.m., my father, sister, and I stood silently by my mother's side, and as she peacefully took her final, shallow breath, the helium balloon lay still on the bed rail, and the last petal of the crimson rose floated slowly, gently to the floor, as her spirit surely rose up. When a loved one dies, within our sorrow, our loss, it is important to remember that there is also an inherent gift in death. It's the awareness of just how precious life is. It reminds us to not let one day go by without appreciating the opportunities that await each one of us every morning when we wake. It compels us to reach out to those in need, to share our time and our resources, to help those less fortunate. It gives us the courage to embrace our gifts and to live authentically. It provides a perspective we would not have had before. For those of you who are struggling with the loss of someone dear to you, be comforted in knowing that our loved ones in spirit are oh so much closer than you think. For the distance between two hearts is measured by the abundance of love found within those hearts, and that is eternal. A very short distance indeed. Hello everyone. This is Nan O'Brien Webb, looking at life. Happy birthday, Mom.